our next hour of presenting in the Quarantine Virtual Insights Conference. I'm Maureen Valentine, and I am a quantitative specialist with Accelerate Research. So I'm really excited for everybody to be here. Unfortunate that we're still in quarantine, but we're trying to make the most of it and share insights and communicate with each other the best we can in our kind of remote situation. So thank you for everybody that's joining us today. And once again, just to kind of go over some ground rules, we are at the mercy of tech today. So please be respectful and patient with us. Sometimes, we have a lot of people coming in and out and connecting and everything. So please keep that in mind and take this opportunity as a time to network and engage. We have a lot of people in high up positions here, which is really fortunate. So let's use this to the best of our ability and our time. So today I want to present Eliza Jacobs, and she is the Director of Consumer Insights and Analysis at PBS. And she's going to be telling about Give Me More Dolly Parton, Country Music and a Documentary Film, a PBS love story. And I'm personally very excited about this because I love Dolly Parton. That's why I'm getting Dolly Parton Imagination Library books every month, and they're age appropriate and they're just the best. And I just think Dolly is just the best person ever. So I'm super excited about this, and I will let you take it from here, Eliza.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to share my screen. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Let's see here. Is my screen showing or no?
It is showing. It's not in the presenter mode though.
Okay. Is it now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to be here at home still, but as a part of this conference and share with you a very long research, experience, you could call it, that I had in support of Ken Burns, documentary filmmaker Ken Burns' film Country Music, which premiered on PBS just over a year ago, but I spent about a year or so of my life doing research in support of the film. So I'm trying to, maximize that experience by presenting sort of what the plan was, what we did, and what the outcomes were of that experience. Okay, just a little bit about me. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. Big Bills fan, which is really stressful at times, but I'm still ever the optimist. Maybe one day we'll get back to the Super Bowl and win it. I'm a big fan of snowstorms. This is one of my favorite snowstorms from growing up. It's called the six-pack snowstorm. We got something like 30-ish inches of snow in like 24 hours or 36 hours, something ridiculous. And our mayor at the time, Jimmy Griffin, said, grab a six-pack, stay at home, watch some football. But now I live in Alexandria, Virginia with my husband and our two kids. And, they're not great at clearing snow here, but that means we get a fair amount of snow days if we actually get legitimate snow. Oops. Okay. So I just wanted to, for a moment, say I hope everyone's doing okay. It's been a really long 7.5, almost 8 months. This was my original workspace that I was confined to in a living room on a really small table. And it became too much. So we moved actually this past weekend, which is crazy. I don't think I'm going to recover from a move for a long time, but we didn't move just because of it, but we clearly outgrew our space and it was time for us to find something new. Here are our two kids. That's our son, Leighton. He's 10. He's in virtual 5th grade, or he's in 5th grade, but he's doing it virtually. And then that's our 4-year-old daughter, Beatrix. And so all of this is just to say, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm in a permanent state of exhaustion. And I don't know, after a move, I'm not sure it'll get better anytime soon. But the move was worth it. I like our new house. So, and just, a good mental health check-in to remember it's okay to not be okay. Here's 2 resources that I found really spoke to me and really made me feel better about sort of when I was feeling really tired or just stressed out, that this is a very foreign and alien experience for human beings who basically we've lost a lot of control of our lives. And so that surge capacity article was really, really good. It just talked about how humans are not wired to handle prolonged stressful experiences. So that's just a little PSA here, but now let's move on to more interesting things and why we're here today. So PBS, hopefully everyone's heard of PBS, Public Broadcasting Service. Our president and CEO, Paula Kurgers, and she's said this a few times recently, that she says the two most important letters in our name are the P and the S, right? Public and service. We are America's public broadcaster, here to provide content to the American public. We are a private nonprofit corporation founded in 1969. October 4th, we had our first broadcast just over 50 years ago. It was the premiere of The French Chef with Julia Child. We are a membership organization, so we're made up of America's public TV stations, which are non-commercial and educational licensees. And we are a federated system of over 330 member stations in all 50 states and US territories. I kind of think of it as a hub and spoke model. So I work at the headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, and then we've got 300 plus stations sort of coming out and as the spokes. Okay, so this was actually, if PBS doesn't do it, who will? I saw this on a colleague's mug and I thought, oh, this is a great slide title. Another option would be without the P, we're just BS, but that's not quite as, I don't know, it's not quite as positive. But one of the things about PBS is that we're a true variety service. We offer all different types of content. We have a separate kids service. The only things we really don't do at sort of the national level are breaking news, weather, and sports. And there are many local stations, I'm sure some of your local stations do serve as a sort of emergency weather notification service, particularly in sort of very rural areas where, like telco signal's not so great. And then some stations do also broadcast local high school sports. But at the national level, we don't do that. And then we are free, non-commercial, and have a signal reach to over 80% of Americans. And then there's this guy, Ken Burns. The main reason we're here today. He's considered by many to be one of the greatest American documentarians. He's a pretty confident guy, so I think he may think of himself that way as well. The titles here on the slide are just a snapshot of the many films over the past 35 or so years that he's directed, produced, or just been a part of the creative team. His films cover a really wide swath of topics. Some are focused on individuals, like Jackie Robinson. Some are about sort of larger social or cultural movements. Some are about, wars. And ultimately what he's trying to do is weave together the history of this country through film. And he's very intentional about all of his films. He takes a really long time to make them. And he believes that you have to have enough physical distance in time to have a historical perspective. So that's why, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, some of his films do sort of stop at like a weird point in history because he doesn't feel that there's enough time to really have that historical perspective. Okay, so in case you were worried, I'm gonna do a little shameless self-promotion here. Ken has a lot in the pipeline for the next 7 years. I mean, I don't know how anyone can think 7 years into the future. I certainly am not even really thinking past this week, but we've got a bunch of films. Presumably they'll all be on PBS, at least sort of initially. So next year we have two films on Ernest Hemingway and Muhammad Ali. I think both of those are, I believe, 3 episodes each. So these films will range in length from 2 to 5 parts or episodes, and usually each episode's about 2 hours. But he's always got multiple projects in the hopper, and obviously he's already planned out the next 7 years of his professional life. And one of the things about Ken, is that I think we are lucky to have him at PBS. There is a lot of brand equity associated with him. There are amongst our, sort of most loyal consumers, people hear Ken Burns, they know, PBS. But we do make a lot of exceptions for him that we don't make for other directors or producers. We give him basically the run of a schedule for however long his film is. And that's sort of what dominates our schedule at that time. We just make more accommodations and adjustments than we normally would. What's interesting is that what COVID sort of brought about is that we were able to rebroadcast some of his films. So I think national parks, baseball, and maybe the 10th inning and a couple others. And the reason we hadn't done that before or in a while is because we just didn't have the rights to him. So he had essentially re-released the rights to PBS for us to rebroadcast them. In addition, we've also been able to throw those films into a collection I called the Ken Burns collection in PBS Passport, which is our member benefits. It's a streaming member benefit where you have access to a huge library of older content that basically if you become a member of your local PBS station as a sustainer, which means $60 a year, you can have access to that content. We're not really allowed to call it a streaming service because of for revenue purposes, but that's kind of the equivalent to what it is. But it's a member benefit. But one of the things, and I think that this quote is really interesting from him, where he basically acknowledges that he could go somewhere else and get more money and, make his films. But the fact is, he's right. He's not going to get 10 and a half years to make a film like the Vietnam War, which was in 2017. And he will lose a lot of editorial control. I think he is in charge. What he says goes with his films. He is deeply involved in every aspect of his film. And I don't know that if he were to go somewhere else, that he would have that. The other thing is that I just learned, and I think this is really interesting, that 70% of the budget for his films comes from external funding sources. And he has to basically reinvent that funding wheel every time for every film, which is crazy to me, but he does it. And he's a workhorse. He goes on his little media road shows and he promotes his films, and he works hard for his films. But I will also just say he is one lens through which, we're seeing history. I think there are some people who have been critical and say that we need to give more room in our schedule to other less well-known producers or directors, perhaps, certainly more people of color. I think that's been made even more apparent now. And so, I don't know that that's going to change, but it is interesting to see sort of some pushback from, I read an article about it recently that we need to maybe not carve out such a large amount of our schedule every couple of years for him. Okay, so on to today's topic, country music. As I said, this film premiered last September, and it was different for PBS. I think it's very specific. Country music has obviously it's a huge fan base. People have really strong preconceived notions about country music, is one of the things I learned through the research, and it can be really hard to change those opinions. So this was a challenge for us for a lot of reasons, and I'm just going to walk through those challenges, and then we'll sort of get into how we address those challenges through the research. So, I'm sure many of you know this is the Carter family, the founding family of country music in this country. First episode of country music, they're right there in the first few minutes of the film. Okay. So the first thing is that this was the highlight of our 2018-19 primetime schedule. So it premiered in the middle of September 2019. That's like right at the end of the season, our season. So, it was the thing we kind of tried to build up to throughout the last summer. So this was an 8-episode film, 16 and a half hours. Ken actually filmed 170 hours of footage, did over 101 interviews. So he took, 10% of that and created this film. He donated the rest, his entire library or archive to the Country Music Hall of Fame, which I think is pretty cool. But this is a really long film. And I think that, documentaries are typically not running this long these days. So we really had little control over this film. Ken says, he basically delivers a director's cut to PBS and has said publicly, if people don't like my films, they can direct the criticism to me. I am, as I said, involved in every, step of the way. We do screen his films. Obviously, we screen all of our content to see if we have to add in any advisories for language or violence, which isn't usually an issue. But we really didn't have the authority or will maybe to go back to him and say, well, we don't really like this in, episode 6. Can you change it? He's not going to do it. Once the thing is done, it's done. Okay. So the scheduling was tricky for this. 8 episodes is kind of an odd number. It means you're, with only 7 days in a week, you're definitely going to extend across 2 weeks partially. And Ken has a very specific vision for how his films should be consumed. We did some people in my department did some modeling in terms of what would work best for PBS and our audience, right? To draw in the best audience, what would be the best approach for marketing, because they're the ones who have to promote this film. And basically where we landed is that, and PBS is so unique. I feel like we're one of the only organizations who do this. It premiered on a Sunday night, September 15th. So the first 4 episodes ran Sunday to Wednesday. And then we said to people, go away 4 days and then come back the following Sunday. And the following 4 episodes will be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's insane. You're sending your audience away for 4 days. It makes no sense, but we did it. And actually, it as we'll see later, it worked out better than I expected. The streaming was also a challenge. So Ken's he wasn't really supportive of the idea of us releasing all 8 episodes to be available for streaming on the night of that premiere of episode 1. He really wants his films to be watched episodically in order. He doesn't want people just going from episode 1 to 4 to 7. So we had this bizarro streaming window schedule as well, which you'll see on the next slide. Okay, marketing. So we are public broadcasting. We don't have infinite budgets. So we really had to make the most of the budget that we had. And we had to be strategic and make sure that our promotional assets worked for us and we were really maximizing those opportunities. The other thing is that I was just woefully uninformed on was that just how difficult it is to secure music rights for promotional purposes. So there was a woman in our creative services department who had this crazy Google spreadsheet keeping track of what music was cleared, what sort of images were cleared to see what we could use and couldn't use. Some of the promotional images and spots that we put together, they would just throw something together to test for pacing, and then they would have to change out the image and the music because we couldn't get cleared to use those artists or their music. The estate of Johnny Cash is apparently very difficult to work with. And I understand they're protecting the legacy of the artist. Okay, so here, just talking a little bit about how we were trying to appeal to consumers. So, as I said, Ken sometimes stops at a weird point in history because he doesn't want to get too close to modern day. And what I mean too close is he doesn't really want to come within 20 or 25 years of modern day. So this film ended in 1996, and I believe sort of Shania Twain was the last modern country music star who's featured. So, there's a lot of artists who've just come along since then who are incredibly popular and successful. So, but they are not featured in this film. So that's one sort of part of the challenge. The other thing is that PBS's core audience, right? Like our traditional viewers who still watch primarily through TV at the time of premiere, our average age is 66 years old. Now, that is not old in real life, but for a TV audience, that's old. I think we're one of the oldest networks in terms of the average age of our consumer around. So the goal was really to hope that the core would come, because we do need them to come and watch our content, even though the overarching goal is to try to bring new people into the fold and hope they'll stick around. New meaning younger, definitely, more men, and then diverse across basically all demos. Because still our that core audience member is still, as I said, older, definitely more Caucasian, and definitely more female. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is hope that people would come in, give it a shot, and then choose to stick around and watch the film in its entirety. So this is really an ugly slide, but I want to talk about the scheduling for a moment and sort of why it was not, like, showing you that it was not simple and really not clear. I actually, when I was initially putting this presentation together, like Googled PBS country music schedule, clicked on the link, and then was taken to this, and I discovered it was a page on a PBS website, and I was kind of horrified because I thought, oh, this is like so difficult to understand. But what you can see, if you look at those first 4 episodes here, and you look at those television broadcast dates, and then you can see the streaming window, right? So the streaming, the first 4 episodes were available when the first TV episode premiered, but then you can see the window is about 3 weeks long, and that's a rights related issue. It's so complicated that I can't even, I don't even fully understand it. So then the last 4 episodes sort of premiered or were able to be streamed once that episode 5 premiered on Sunday the 22nd. So this is just another point to illustrate to you that communicating all of this to TV consumers who don't want to have to work too hard to find content is difficult. Okay, so we can talk a little bit here about this research journey that I went on that took 15 minutes of my life. 15 minutes, I wish, 15 months. So as I said, unexpectedly long process. I could not have envisioned the number of projects in research studies in support of this film that I would have done. It just was not typical to do that much in support of Ken's work. This was a different challenge than compared to the 2017's The Vietnam War. One of the things we do know is that Ken's films about war are popular, and wars in general as a topic for a historical documentary is a popular topic. They do well. I think the other thing is that particularly for Vietnam, for Americans, I'm thinking about sort of my parents and my in-laws and people who are the baby boom generation. There's a shared lived experience, right? So they were in their teens or early 20s, but they remember what was going on in the United States at that time. So it's easier to sort of, I think, in a way, relate to the content because it was part of who they were at a very formative time in their lives. When we were putting together the sort of testing the creative elements for the Vietnam War, one of the overarching questions was, will our core audience, namely women, find the topic of war repugnant and not watch the film? And I remember thinking, well, I think a lot of people find war in general repugnant. So I don't know that isolating it to women is a concern, but it ended up not being a big deal. They did put together a couple of different spots that they used in different places. So if we were buying, a spot on a network where maybe the demo skewed more female, they could use the spot that's kind of supposed to be more family focused. Again, generalities that I don't necessarily like there. But it ended up not being a concern. Okay, so I'll talk about sort of an early red flag and what I view as a missed opportunity that could have helped us address some of the concerns. This red flag was really that early on, I did a very simple sort of general interest survey. And I should say, I totally forgot this. We have our own proprietary research panel. We call our insights community. We call it our viewer panel. It's viewers like you, coined a long time ago. You've probably seen, thanks to viewers like you on your local PBS station when they talk about sort of people who've supported PBS. But that community is very loyal to the PBS brand. They're more like our core audience. So we did a study with them. There's about 9,500 people in our community, and the interest in the subject of country music, even though it was a Ken film, was pretty muted. And so there were concerns immediately that, wow, like Ken's name being attached to a film is not going to work the way we thought it would. And I think it challenged some very strong assumptions that people had at PBS. And then, there was, as I said before, little room for error given the limited marketing money that we had. And when I say limited, I don't mean like nothing, but I'll give you some perspective that it was half the amount, the budget for this film, marketing for this film was half of what we had available to us just 2 years earlier for the Vietnam War. And that was not huge by television network standards either. Okay, so the goals, understand points of appeal and intent to view, right? Like, so what were the sort of hooks we could use to draw people in, and would they watch the film? Optimize our creative assets. As I've said, got to make sure that they are going to work wherever we sort of distribute them, and make sure it at least piques people's interest and gives them, oh, that looks kind of interesting. Right. So as I said, we want to bring our core audience in, but also expand our audience. And the sort of targets were country music fans with a younger skew. Younger meaning for PBS's under 55. Okay, so this crazy timeline is my attempt at a visualization of everything that I did over this 15-month period. Basically, all of these studies, so I think about 8 studies, most of them were done twice. One with our own viewer panel, Insights community, and then also with a general population sample to make sure that's balanced the census to really see where are the pockets of opportunity out there that we could target with our promotional assets. So, there's that red flag. This was the general interest survey where interest was pretty muted amongst our core audience. It was 30% below what that same group had, the interest they had expressed in the Vietnam War. Again, I go back to Vietnam, totally different subject, totally different experience for people. But if we're sort of looking at just objectively comparing Ken's films, that was a concern for people. Okay, then everything in November, January, March, basically all of this these other things were all some form of promotional video testing. I tested so many short videos related to this film featuring different artists. I felt like I'd already seen a good portion of the film by the time the film premiered in September. But at one point, one of the studies I did actually had 10 short little like vignettes. And each one was a different artist talking about country music and sort of why they love it and what their music is about. And so I ended up splitting a sample and sending 5 to one group and 5 to another, just because it's very difficult. My opinion was that it was difficult for some people, even though it was different artists we were testing, for respondents to kind of really differentiate between these videos, because they all had the same kind of look and feel. Yeah, different artists, obviously. Roseanne Cash and Rhiannon Giddens are not the same person. Dolly Parton and Marty Stewart, not the same. But when it kind of feels the same stylistically, I think it became hard for people, and it can get tedious, honestly. I mean, you can only watch so much. I do want to point out in June 2019, this video test with an outside vendor. So despite all of this work I had done up to that point, basically our SVP of digital and marketing, so my boss said, I think we should do one more test with another company. I know someone at this research firm in LA, and we should do it with them. They'll target country music fans, and let's just test some videos with them. And I said, well, I'm pretty confident in the work that we've done already, and that it's sort of told us what we needed to tell us. But he wanted to do it. And so it was fine. I just, had to let that one go. And I ended up basically replicating that outside vendors test also in our viewer panel, just to see if directionally we would get similar results, which was, I don't know, maybe it was for me to prove a point. But basically, what we were doing is we were just covering all of our bases to try to help this film succeed. And frankly, also in the event that it didn't do as well as we kind of thought, might, because there was that red flag, just saying, well, we tried everything, and we did the best we could. So then the wrap-up survey after the film, that we did just that with our viewer panel. We did not do that with general population. That was just kind of to tie a neat bow on the package and sort of say that we went from, the inception of the project and sort of our marketing efforts to the conclusion of it. Okay, so I have a little video here, which hopefully will play, and hopefully you'll hear the sound. If not, it is on YouTube, so it's pretty short. Okay. So if you go on YouTube and you search country music, your Ken Burns or PBS, you can see like 45 different videos, kind of a little bit similar to that, but it's great because we have different artists in there and representing all the different artists who were featured in the film. So this is sort of our print promotional efforts. So this is the poster or print ad that was used in support of the film. This is, we did a bus wrap. Ken did a bus tour through Tennessee. I think here he is. He ended up in Nashville, which makes sense because that's where the Country Music Hall of Fame is. And then we had a billboard in Nashville too. And I think visually, it's really, I think, was quite striking and really conveyed some of the themes of the film really, really well. Okay, so what are the things that we learned? First of all, despite all of this work, or as a result of all of this work, we did find directionally similar results in general, both in our viewer panel studies and then the general population studies. The scores were generally lower in the general population studies because, of course, they're not as engaged with the PBS brand. They're not our loyalists, right? I mean, it's just kind of a straight balance of census sample, but the sort of imagery or video spots that worked were the same in both samples, that worked well, were the same. And so that was good to have some clarity about which direction we should go. The print ad was really not effective in driving interest. I don't think that's really a surprise. It's a standalone image. Yeah, it can be visually striking, but it doesn't fully convey to someone what the film is about, and so I don't think our marketing people were really concerned by that, but I do think it brings into question some of the decisions about, well, is it even worth it to buy print ads and see magazines anymore in support of sort of films or TV shows? Okay, there were a couple promos that worked best, and so we really tried to get a lot of mileage out of those. One was a sort of more nostalgic feeling one was featuring Dolly Parton, the inspiration for this presentation. And one was more that one that you saw that was kind of multiple artists, just hearing sort of about their love for country music. And so we sort of really honed in on using those. Okay, so the highest interest and intent to view, not a surprise in both samples or in any studies that we did, it was country music listeners. I don't think that's a surprise at all. But then also, we found in the general population respondents who were younger, so actually under 45, which is great because that's super young for us. Male respondents and then also Hispanic respondents, and those demos really mesh well with there was a Country Music Association study that's found that sort of those are the pockets of the population where country music fandom is rising really fast. And then there was, as always, a vocal minority who said they're not going to watch it. And I'll talk about them a bit in a moment. So what we learned, points of appeal, the Ken Burns name and the impact of his previous film. So as I said, initially, that association with Ken Burns, people respondents were more focused on the fact that the genre or the subject matter didn't interest them. And I think, of course, when you're asking about something about, read this blurb, tell me what you think about it, without seeing any sort of video content, they're going to not be supported as much or not be as positive towards it. But the more we showed content, the more clips we showed or little videos, the fact that it was Ken, appeal increased. And I think one of the things that our most loyal consumers know is that and they trust Ken Burns. They trust him to do a thorough, because his films are long, so they know it's thorough, overview or of whatever his subject is, and go into details, and that it will be historically accurate. Okay, fun facts and lifelong learners. So the other thing we know about PBS consumers is they really love fun facts, and they love to, sound smart, to be honest with you. So we try to, in some of these promotional efforts, sprinkle in little facts that maybe people might not know. Like I remember in a verbatim comment, one respondent said, "Oh, I didn't know that Willie Nelson wrote the song Crazy that Patsy Cline sang." Like, I mean, I didn't know that either, actually, but I learned that through this. So just anything like that gives little snippets of history that people wouldn't know. Those are super popular with our consumers. Okay, Dolly Parton. A lot of people love Dolly. I love her too. So individual stars, especially Dolly Parton, held special appeal. The number of comments in an open-ended question about Dolly, I mean, it was just so many. It was, she's a national treasure, more Dolly, just do a whole film about Dolly, which we probably could have successfully. What's interesting about her is, and she's featured in the film, is that when we and Ken approached her to help with promotional efforts, she said, "No, I'm not, I don't do that," and this was not her project. And I sure gets how many, requests a day. But she didn't want to help with the promotional efforts. And so, I know our publicity people really wanted her to, but, she was like, she's really busy. This wasn't her project. She agreed to be a part of it, which I think in the film, which is really important, but, but other people stepped up. So it was fine. Okay. And emphasize appealing storyline. So, Ken, even though his films are also very different, he does weave similar narratives and themes throughout his films, regardless of the topic. And so you can see the things that appeal in one film tend to also appeal to people in another film, regardless of the topic. So, for example, here, the things that really popped were the origins of country music, the U.S. cultural backdrop during the 20th century, right? What was happening that helped make this music popular? The personal stories of iconic musicians. People love that stuff, to learn more about famous people, right? And then the evolution of country music. How did it change over the 20th century? Okay, so real quick, this is just when we're testing the creative, we did some heat mapping, which is really cool. I mean, these are not, the deep red is not super high in terms of a percentage, but I think it is an interesting visual just to see the things that our viewer panelists versus the general population respondents sort of really honed in on. So you can see with the viewer panelists, the Ken Burns name is super important to them. It's deeper red. For the general population, he's not necessarily a household name for everyone out there in the US. So they focus more on the tagline, a story of America, one song at a time, more on the sort of imagery of the four artists. And then also they focus a little bit more on the tune in or stream, fall 2019, right? So, and of course our consumers didn't worry about that. They figured they would know when it's on. But for people who aren't as in the know, that was important for them to know when they could watch it. Okay. So also, as I alluded to, there was a vocal minority who said they weren't going to watch it. So here are sort of what the barriers to success were. Again, this is a vocal minority. It was like 8% of respondents. It was not a lot. But number one thing, I don't like country music. They were just like, people, not going to do it. They have really strong preconceived notions. Those are really hard to change. I think we all know when they're deeply embedded. And then as a result, they weren't interested in learning more about country music. I don't like it. I don't want to learn more. Okay, those go hand in hand. The other one that was interesting, now keep in mind this was now going back in time, but it's still, it's an interesting point a few days out from election day, but there were some comments about people tying country music to, and I'm not getting political here, I'm just stating fact, more conservative politics. I remember some comments where, this genre of music is not representative of a diverse America. It's not representative of the United States. I think a lot of country music artists would probably disagree. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that is a perception thing. And as we know, perceptions really, you have to work hard to change those. Okay, so just this missed opportunity. As I said, I think we missed a chance to, after that initial interest survey where the red flags were raised about lower interest. I think we should have, I'm going to say should have, done some qualitative work. Because notice, I did a ton of surveys. There was no qualitative work there. And I had made that recommendation. People didn't want to do it. We could have done some qualitative work, whether it was focus groups, whether it was interviews, whatever it was, and really honed in on what are your initial sort of concerns about this topic. What can we do to make it more, appealing to you? And we didn't do that, even though I remember thinking, are we going to do sort of focus groups? Because typically with Ken's films, we always do some sort of qualitative work in support of it. And it just, the interest wasn't there. I think that would have helped us resolve some of these questions and maybe helped us avoid some of these million video tests. But we didn't do it. It's a learning opportunity. And it's also in the past. So, you got to move on. Okay. Did we have an impact? Yes. So we helped multi-platform marketing finalize different promotions. As I said, we learned what worked better. And so they could focus their efforts on using 2 of them to really support the film. We got a lot of good press out of this. This is from Rolling Stone, Country Music Review, Ken Burns' epic essential look at an American art form. We delivered a super steady audience across all 8 episodes. I could not believe how steady this audience is. Now, steady means flat, but that doesn't mean, typically with a premiere, you're up here and then it's woo, the audience goes not all the way down to the bottom, but there is a decrease in the audience size night after night. And especially because we really put our efforts in promoting to bring people to the premiere. This was the steadiest audience I've seen in a really long time. I don't even know if we could do it now because the media landscape has changed so much, even in just a year. But it was really amazing. Country Music was actually Ken's most watched film since our 2014 film, The Roosevelts. The first five episodes of Country Music were our most watched telecasts of the whole season. It's crazy. 23% new viewers. That's very good for us. Typically, we're significantly lower than that. Did they stick around? No, because we didn't do a good job of doing complementary scheduling where you've got country music and then you want to put on other related content. But the good news is we brought in 23% new viewers, at least for this film. Okay, I told you our average age on TV is 66 years old. We doubled our primetime average rating amongst younger demos, and so people were really, really happy with that. And just to wrap it all up, in the wrap-up survey, the key drivers of sort of interest in the film were Ken's films and an affinity for historical documentaries. So in the end, the things that we knew typically were the strongest drivers of interest in these films ended up being just that. All right, so let's wrap it up. A couple key takeaways from my experience here. So, my perspective is, at least at PBS, it's not my job to tell people in other departments in marketing or programming what to do. They don't necessarily tell me what to do. I tell them what to do. But I do hope that when they're making decisions about programming, about scheduling, about marketing, creative assets, that they are making informed decisions and not kind of just throwing a dart at the wall. Of course, there's some art to it. There's some gut feelings to it. But by providing them with data, at least they can ingest that and it can be a part of the decision-making process. If we've learned anything in 2020, you got to be flexible and not worry about what's not in your control. That outside vendor test, as I alluded to, I kind of was a little bit tweaked about that for a bit, but then I realized, hey, it's fine. I get it. We've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help this film succeed. And in the end, it worked out because their results and the results from the studies that I did sort of were directionally all similar. And finally, be confident in your expertise. This was a great, while long, experience for me to present multiple waves of data to a lot of people who are key decision makers at PBS. Would I have gotten that exposure? Otherwise, I'm not sure. But for me, that was an important takeaway. It gave me a lot more confidence to do sort of my daily job, to make recommendations, presenting, all of that. Okay. A key thing I think is, now that I have all this hindsight, would I take all this approach again? Would we do all of this again? Honestly, probably not. At the time, it felt like overkill. I think now I still think it's overkill. I don't think we need to test as many videos. I think, sometimes you have to do, it was my job. People were telling me what to do, but I think going forward, I would not recommend doing this much work in support of it, because I don't think it's necessary. I would also push harder for a qualitative aspect. Or doing something with sort of showing people a stimuli, a promo or the print ad or whatever, and doing a quick video response from them. I think those are, obviously the technology has gotten a lot better in that area for our industry. And I would really love to take advantage of doing that in some project going forward. And that's it. I think we are now Q&A.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Sure. My pleasure.
Presentation. Okay, so we have 2 questions come in. I don't know if you can see these or not. The first is from Brian. He says, how do you differentiate long format telecasts in the COVID era and have greater stickiness versus, say, AMC, Disney Plus, etc.?
Wow, that's a great question. That is a big, big challenge. And it's a timely question, because yesterday, or in the last week, I was just voluntold into a group, a large group of, like, there's 31 of us, to sort of look into what does our content, or really distribution strategy, need to be for the next 5 years, because this industry is just changing so fast. And that, I don't know that there is the interest going forward in having 8 episodes of a documentary. I mean, and that's not everything I've said today. None of it's a dig at Ken intentionally. I think he's a filmmaker. He's an artist, and but the industry overall is not that. It's his style is not necessarily representative of what we're seeing things today. So. Yeah, I think we're going to have to change our approach. I mean, that's been acknowledged. I mean, even in the years since this film premiered, there's so much has changed, right? Disney Plus, I mean, I'm great. We're subscribers in my household. No one can compete with them. I mean, they're just a behemoth, like, with all due respect. Yeah, I mean, there's literally nothing we can do. We don't have the financial or people resources to do it. But I think it's a question of, can we remind people that we are the home of, as a documentary film? We need to make more of an effort to really cut through all of the noise and clutter out there, and make sure we are doing the best we can to promote our content everywhere. So that means, when someone sees something on their phone in an app, like making sure that our, whatever it is, our promotional assets stick out, right? That they just don't scroll by. And that's something that I'm working on a study now where our SVP of digital marketing, he said, we need to make sure we are testing an image where it would show like a carousel essentially. And would people click on it to learn more? Because I think sometimes we test things, and we have really tested a lot in isolation, and that's not realistic. That's not the consumer experience.
Mm-hmm. Nice. From Annie, she says, why was qualitative research rejected? Too expensive? Assumed it would duplicate the other findings? Why not valued?
I don't know, because that was our marketing department's decision. I think, yeah, is it more expensive than a survey, in a one-off survey? Yes, it is. However, look at the number of surveys I did. If you took the money from all of those general population studies and we put that money into groups, we would have, easily been able to do them. So I think some of it was budget. I think some of it is, at the time, maybe some people were a little bit naive, and like they were concerned about those things that I brought up with the lower level of interest, but they thought, oh, it's okay, it'll be okay. It's Ken, it'll be okay. Mm-hmm. It kind of was. It did work out okay, but again, if I have to do something for one of his films again, like the longer films, I would definitely emphasize the need to do some sort of qualitative work, because we just weren't able to get at those deeper issues. Like, I mean, I couldn't probe really at all. Like, okay, you don't like country music? Okay. I mean, I can't, unless you're having a conversation with someone, right? Like, it's hard to get at the reasons why. Mm-hmm. And then how we could change their minds.
Right. Yeah. Well, I watched the documentary personally, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, that's good to hear. It was great. A lot of people enjoyed it, but we have to be in people's consideration set, right? And that is the challenge. Not the challenge, a challenge.
Yeah. What projects are you working on now? What are your upcoming
Yeah, so I've actually got something right now. It is another sort of looking at which promotional asset works better on a film, or it's a series coming out in February from Henry Louis Gates called The Black Church. And it's basically looking at a history of the Black Church. And it's interesting because our creative services team, our department, put together one. It's the print ad, and then the producer of the film put together something else. And I honestly have never seen such starkly different images it's used that are being proposed to promote a film. Yeah, they're wild. Ours is sort of a stained glass window, really bright, and the other one is it's darker. I don't really know how to describe it other than it's darker. I think it kind of looks like a tornado is coming from it's very dark. And so we're really, our marketing team said that one is not going to work, but then you've got the producer of the film. So basically I'm doing some work to try to help resolve that situation. So we'll see. We'll see what the data say.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from anyone? We did see some Bills fans, which is exciting.
Oh yeah. They're stressing me out this year, every year, but also this
My
year.
husband's a Bills fan. He went to University of Buffalo, so.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. I grew up near there, yeah.
Yeah, we just moved from Ithaca, actually, from upstate, so.
Cool.
We're familiar with those winters. But yeah, I don't think we have any other questions, so.
Great.
Good. Really nice talk. We really enjoyed it. And
thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Have a good day.
Okay. You too. Take care.
So everyone, please stick around. We have about 8 minutes before the next talk. So we'll go silent for a few minutes. Everybody get some coffee, get a snack, and we will see you soon.